Talk about New Year's resolutions and taking action. Being out on the verge of the rest of your life and just getting what you want out of life. Those people are living life to the greatest. Yeah, some of them are crazy, jumping out to the edge of that building when it was, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of feet down. That looked a bit crazy to me. But those people were living on the verge of the rest of their life. And that's what I want to say to you all. We are living on the verge of the rest of our life, but we're living on the verge of greatness. We are one thought, one action, one change in our mind away from greatness. That's all that holds us back. It's interesting because Forbes magazine talked about, a couple of years ago I read this article how, and it's going to burst your bubble, but 90% of your resolutions of you all are going to fail at your resolutions. I'm sorry. 90%. So 90% of resolutions that are initiated fail within a few months. They don't even make it very long. A lot of times these people who make resolutions, I made a resolution. I made actually 3 of them. I kept 2. One, I was too busy. But what I'm trying to say is 90% of them fail because we either don't start them, we do start them, and then they fail and we don't retry, or we simply just never begin to begin with, right? And what that means when you think about that vibration is there's a lack of action. A lack of action with that mindset that I'm going to be something different. I'm going to be out on the verge. And what's interesting is when we think about this principle, we realize that we're at the right place at the right time always. As Eckhart Tolle says, be in the now. Have you read those books, seen those videos? Be in the now, be in the moment, that presence of God in every moment. And what it's saying is that if you stay in that moment, you can unfold yourself to a state of greatness step by step by step. We don't find our greatness by shooting for an ultimate vision. You find your greatness by taking action steps, step by step by step, purposeful steps, godly steps, keeping God in those decisions, Spirit in those decisions as we move forward. So my question is, who wants a great life? I do. Who wants this church to be great? I certainly do. I've been doing this for 10 years. I better hope it's going to be great. I know it's great because we're making a difference. Look at the 50 some odd people we have here today. When I started, there were barely 5. Tiny little place in Dania Beach. It's changed so drastically. Friends, the universe, that principle called God, the spirit world of life, it all conspires. It really just is driven, or it operates in such a way that it's constantly trying to provide you, which is an expression of itself, trying to provide you with opportunities to be great. Because if you're great, that expression of God, the universe, everything that is, becomes great in its totality. Because each one of us, as we always say, we're individualized units of that expression called God. But my question is, are you paying attention in those moments? Are you paying attention to your life in general, to what's around you, who's around you? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to have some wake-up calls today about who's around you, because that's important. That's a little key. Speaking of paying attention, back when I was in Texas, most of you know I grew up on a cattle farm in Texas. We have a small ranch with, interestingly enough, old volcanoes on it. You don't see too many volcanoes in Texas. But little knobs, we call them. But they're covered with lava rock and springs, and it's very pretty. And back in Texas, the preacher used to talk about, he always told this parable, I'd say twice a year, but it was very important. A parable of the flood, he called it. And it goes like this. Basically, the rainstorms come, the rainy season, but it was really excess that year. And so the flood waters came off of the rivers, over the embankments, out into the farms, flooded the farms, pushed its way into the town, pushed its way into the homes. And there's this gentleman, a very devout religious man, always with his Bible, always praying, always serving others, very religious. The water is up to his knees in his home, and he's not too worried, but he's paying attention because he's got God with him. All of a sudden, he hears a honk outside the door, and he opens the door, and he looks. There's a big old truck full of families, and they're yelling, get in, the water's rising, you got to get out of here, they're evacuating. He said, no, thank you, God's going to save me. And they're like, okay, suit yourself, off they go. Leave him there. The waters keep rising, pushes him up to the second floor of his house. He's hanging out the window, looking around, surveying to see how bad the flood is. Clearly it's bad, second floor of the house. But all of a sudden this boat comes by. Hey, mister, we'll throw you a line. Swim over to us. No, thank you. No, thank you. God's going to save me. I'll be all right. So the boat takes off, leaves him. So the waters keep rising, and they push him up into the attic, and he crawls out of the attic onto that roof. The water's at the roof line, and all of a sudden the winds pick up, and this thunderous sound, and a ladder falls out of the sky, and he realizes it's a military helicopter. And they're like, buddy, you got to get out of your house. You got to climb the ladder. And he goes, no, thank you. God's going to save me. I'm all right. They take off. The waters rise. They take him off. He disappears. But he wakes up in this little mysterious place called heaven. And he instantly goes to find the man, the woman, God. Right? Goes to find this principle called God. God, I devoted my life to you. I believed with you with all my heart and soul. I gave everything for you. Why didn't you save me? And God said, well, what did you expect? I sent you a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. You refused them. What else could I do for you? What's the moral of the story? God helps those who help themselves, right? God helps those who take action in their life. And it's very interesting. We didn't plan it today, but I was talking to Reverend Tim this morning at my house when he came by for a little meeting. But the principle that we chose today, and I'm sure it was Spirit, is exactly what you needed to hear for what I brought forward in the sermon. I forgot to tell them I needed that principle, and that's what they put in. Personal responsibility. We believe in personal responsibility and that we create our own happiness or unhappiness as we live in harmony or discord with natural, physical, and spiritual laws. That's all about taking action. We are personally responsible. We do not, our teachings do not teach you that a person can hang on a cross and forgive you of your actions, sins, and choices. We don't believe in the principle of sin. It's a false concept. We talk about that in membership orientation class. Sin just means you've missed your spiritual mark. That's where the word originated. But a lot of people have conveniently forgotten that and use it as a weapon. We don't teach that here. Okay? And so that principle of taking action, it's very important. And that gentleman refused the opportunities to be great in life, to be of service to a higher power, because he was so distracted with his teachings that he couldn't possibly look at and see God in the moment. Remember how I said earlier, be present in the now, find the God in the moment, God in the experience? That's really the key today when we take action in our life, is be focused in the moment, focused in the now. Okay? And so when we take action, really action, that's what I want to tell you this. Today is step 2. And it's really all about action. That's the word we're going to use a lot today, action. Taking action. When you take the steps necessary to reach your spiritual goal, you allow God to express more fully into this dimension. You allow God to achieve its greatest state of expression, if you will, into our dimension. So God in itself, by your actions, is expressing to its greatest potential as well. It's very give and take, yin and yang. As you sow, you reap. A lot of reciprocity in that. Very interesting. There's some of you have probably been in my office. There's a canvas that hangs on the wall of this strange, old-looking man, this ancient picture. It's actually, I think it's a materialized picture that I had printed on canvas. It's a very sacred image of an ascended master named Babaji. Babaji comes from a tradition of yoga called Kriya Yoga. And in this story, Babaji was a master teacher up high on a mountain, was surrounded by a bunch of students. They were eager to be disciples. One in particular, probably named Tim Jack, one in particular kept bugging the teacher, right? Kept bugging the teacher. He wanted to be a full disciple so bad, he wanted to give his life to Babaji to say, you teach me and I will bring God forward in fullest manifestation on earth. I will become the best student, the best disciple you've ever had. Babaji said, no, sit down and read your books. Meditate. You're annoying me. Well, I wasn't annoying him. He was a master teacher. He can't get annoyed. But you know what I mean. So read your books. The student kept bothering him. Please, Babaji, please. Make me a full disciple. I'm ready. I will give everything to this cause. And the student said, I'll do anything for you if you will make me a full disciple. Babaji said, really? Okay then, run and jump off that cliff and I'll make you a full disciple. That student immediately threw down the books, ran and jumped off the cliff, and disappeared. Students were horrified. Babaji and the students went all the way down the mountain to the bottom of that cliff. They found a beautiful mess at the bottom. Let's just put it that way. Students were still horrified. Some were upset. But Babaji was smiling and laughing. And the students couldn't understand. And Babaji rematerialized a new body for that student and said, now I make you a full disciple. Why does that make me emotional? Because that student had so much faith in the process, had so much faith in the master, the teacher present, and had so much faith in the God principle that that student was willing to literally ignore the concept of the body life, the body principle, the body temple, was willing to sacrifice in order to achieve something greater. That student took action, did not allow challenges, obstacles, or excuses to get in the way. This body is not an excuse to our greatness in life. That's a very powerful story, very powerful statement. Beautiful story. So if you're ever in the office, look on the wall, you'll see who Babaji is. I honor him quite often. Beautiful teachings of that man. And so often we use these excuses. My body is whatever. And my body is preventing me from whatever. We use these excuses to justify that we've got a challenging life, that life isn't good to us, that our parents isn't good to us, that my boss isn't good to us. My life is horrible. My life is a mess. Excuse after excuse after excuse. You're focused on the past. And so what I want to say, so often we'll use the excuse, I heard this the other day, my car's not reliable, so I can't possibly go out and look for a job. Come on. There's Uber. There's taxis, buses, friends. You can get a ride somewhere. I've heard this before. My dog got run over before. I can't possibly get another dog. Can't possibly, because it might happen again. Really? You're still focused on the past. You're not focused on the potential. You're using your past as an excuse to prevent you from moving to a state of happiness, greatness, joy, healing, fullness, wholeness. People say, my partner left me in such a bad way, I can't possibly go dating again. Can't possibly. It probably going to happen again. Well, with that mindset, you're going to draw that to you through the law of attraction. If you're focused so much on being taken advantage of or abused or left or less than, I guarantee you're going to draw that person magnetically to you. I see it so many times. Lately, people are saying, the sky is falling. President Trump is president. Well, okay, that's no excuse. Get on with your life. You know, I can't deal with all that issue in the White House, but I can get on with my life, and I can just be the best American citizen that I can be. Right? No more excuses. Take action. No more excuses. Take actions. You've got to trust. You've got to really trust that the principle called God is working to express itself in the fullest way by providing opportunities for you to achieve greatness. Because you, in essence, are a child of the principle of God, because we all come from that source, right? We're not physically children of God. But in a way, we are a creation. We're part of nature. God created nature, and we're part of that. You have to know that God and your spirit guides, those beings, those personalities in the higher realms of life, those principles are always operating to bring you opportunities for life advancement. I'm going to tell you something that's going to pop another balloon today for you today. Have you ever heard of a soul contract? Very interesting. When I've sat in spirit circles and I've heard spirits speak to us, they've said, each one of you, before you embodied in these physical forms, before you took infant form, you made a contract, what's called a soul contract. Some call it a blueprint, divine blueprint or something. It's the same difference. But that principle is this. You made a contract with your spiritual guides and teachers and masters who are there guiding you, and sometimes your family, your karmic family? Your karmic family who remains in the ethers, working behind the veil for you here in the physical. Those beings are providing opportunities in this life, placing obstacles, placing challenges, placing difficulties and even hot messes in your life because you need to learn from that. Placing nasty bosses in your life. I had one, thought I was having a heart attack, and it was basically a lesson to learn to let go and cut back and focus a little more on church. The spirit world had placed a very difficult situation in my life so that I would learn I need to step back and focus on what's most important. Not all the money, not all the titles in the job, in the hospitals, in the best cases, and I worked for the best doctors. It wasn't about all that. It was about me focusing on what mattered in my life so that I could be great, so I could be great for you. Very hard lesson. Because I literally was at the cardiologist where people were twice my age looking at me funny sitting in the lobby. And here's this young man who's saying, I got chest pains, I'm sinking, I'm coughing, something's wrong, my heart's beating funny. Well, it was stress. I had to find the lesson in that difficulty. There wasn't anything wrong with me. We did all the tests. I was fine. But the doctor said, let's talk about your work. And he was right. The doctor was right. Interesting. Bruce Lee, who knows that kung fu actor? Bruce Lee. Yeah, Bruce Lee. Right? Bruce Lee said, and it's very important, he said, don't pray for an easy life, but pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. I have heard that quote in other in sacred yogic teachings. I have heard it in spirit circles where the personalities from the spirit world have spoken that into the room or through the mystic or the medium. I have heard that same principle from saints. It's written in some books about not praying for an easy life. Everybody's running around praying, Lord, grant me, heal my life and give me an easy life. It's been a long journey. You're not meant to have an easy life. If you were meant to have an easy life, you'd be in the spirit world. You see, we are all advanced souls. Every single one of you may not have ever thought of this. Every single one of you are advanced souls because you chose the hardest life expression in the third dimension. You chose this dimension because they do not have the senses of the five senses of touch, taste, smell, hearing, and seeing as we do here. Spirit says they come here into this dimension to experience the oppressive nature of senses. And because it provides such an emotional and spiritual and tumultuous experience, they say they look at us like it's a movie. When they see us as moving lights. But they can't feel the senses as we feel them. And that's why we choose to embody in this physical third dimension. To experience all the craziness and having a life that's a hot mess. You know? Because we can take that experience and all of those profound emotions back to the world of spirit and share those in coliseums and symposiums and with that, what do they call it? The Akashic Records. We place our life as a book in the great Akashic Records so that other souls who come in to learn about this dimension and the human life expression can learn what it's like. They can live our life for a moment by accessing those bits of information, those vibrations of thought. It's really fascinating. Now, what do I always teach you? We are God in what? Yes, expression. Very good. You're actually not asleep. Good. Thank you. I don't hear snoring today. I never hear snoring. You may nod off. That's okay. But what I want to say to you is this. If we're God in expression, why would God allow you? I'm going to write a book on this one day. You know how everybody says, why God? Why'd you do that to me? My brother's in that vibration. My brother's had a pretty rough life. Accidentally took someone's life, and it's affected him his whole life. Why, God, did you do this to me? Why am I such a bad person? But if we are God in expression, why would God do anything negative, harmful to you? God doesn't do anything to you. God provides opportunities, these difficult lessons for you to grow through, to learn from, and to evolve through the successes of those moments. That's why those principles come forward. That's why those principles come forward. You are part of that greatness called God, and why would God allow you and a part of itself to be anything other than great? Right? God wouldn't do that. God wants and literally has created. Remember in the beginning I said the universe and the spirit world are literally, they're created. They're what's the word? Come on, spirit. The spirit world literally, and God creates the universe in such a way that it constantly is producing what we need in our life. In other words, what it needs to be the greatest it can be in life. Please have a seat. Thank you. Donna, would you please come and join her? Thank you. And if you could just make room for one more person on the front row, thank you. Thank you so much. What I want to say is we got to take action because that divine principle is actually moving everything in place into your spiritual journey as we speak. This church is a part of your journey. Your job is a part of the journey. Your ex-lovers, your current lover, your soon-to-be husband, wife, whatever. Everything is being placed into motion for your greatness. So I want you to tell your number. Tell your neighbor, Tell your number. I got your number. Okay? Don't even start that. Don't start that. I heard that. Tell your neighbor, I am destined to be great. Tell your other neighbor. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to go within. If we're going to focus on the principles and the things that get us to a state of greatness in our life where we can unfold that, you actually got to go within in quiet time. You got to go in with what we call meditation and sit with Spirit. And when Spirit kind of washes over you in the Baptist churches and whatnot, we talk about the Holy Spirit and all this. And when that presence, when that quickening takes place around you and things feel magical and electrical and I don't know what's around me, but I feel like I'm being hugged by angels or something. It really is what we call the whole Spirit of God, quickening. You are aligning with the principle of God in the moment. You are literally reaching a point where the yogis talk about samadhi. You're right on the verge of it. That's what that is. That's what all this Holy Spirit talk is people talk about. It's that quickening of God. Your spirit is aligning with the principle of God in a much closer way. You're nearing that point. Very interesting. What is my idea of a great life? My idea, when I sat and thought about this a couple of weeks ago as I was preparing all this material, I realized I want to awaken everyone in my path and on the periphery of my path, in my light, to the principles of divinity that is within them. And it's with all around them. Pardon. I want to awaken them to the principles of divinity. And how am I going to do that? As a speaker, as a teacher, as a medium, as a minister? Well, that's great. Those are the titles that I want, but how do you get to those titles? Well, you got to have an action plan, right? You got to do some steps. You got to take personal responsibility. I had to take personal responsibility and fly up to Mother Church up in Roanoke, Virginia for 5 years in order for me to get my 4-year ordination as a formal minister. Took a while. I had to make a lot of sacrifices. I couldn't go to the beach or on fancy trips because I was constantly going to Mother Church where I was taking all the seminary courses in metaphysics and learning about all this. Interesting. I made a sacrifice to do that. But you know what's interesting? This was kind of hard for me to write down, but I thought, Reverend Grace bears her soul. I better start bearing my soul. Right? Poor Reverend Grace, you know, those Catholics. Reverend Grace, we love her. I know you're watching, Reverend Grace. I can see in the camera. So what was my weakness? I found my weakness. And it really surprised me. I can run a business, start a business, sell a business, buy a house, remodel a house, flip a house. I've done all those things. I've started my own nonprofit. I've been on boards of directors. I've done all kinds of things in life. I've done all kinds of things. I've achieved becoming a teacher, a speaker, a medium twice over. I've taken a 3-year and a 2-year program to learn how to be a platform medium, to work with the world of spirit and work with the public. And in seminary, 5 years, what I learned, I missed out of all of that, I didn't know how to be a leader. I can run a business, and I can talk to people, and I can do great things, but I didn't know how to be a leader. How do you lead your people? I can build the kingdom, but you got to lead the people. You got to guide the people with your light. And that's what leadership is all about. So I realized I was a weak leader. So what did I do? I had my action plan. So I told Spirit, I sat down with Spirit in meditation and I said, I need somebody, preferably physical, that will come into my life and be my mentor. I need a spiritual mentor bad. I need it yesterday. You hear that? Yesterday. And pretty soon, you know how you get, you know how you see visions sometimes, or you say, Spirit, you know what, I just don't know if that was you in my dream. Would you send me a bird to the window? Then I'll know it's you. Then I know that dream was real. Well, Spirit sent me Big Bird over here, Reverend Tim. I love picking on him. Spirit sent me this bird over here as a patient of mine, and we instantly hit it off. We realized there was something spiritually connected between us, and over the years we developed a relationship. And eventually, when his term at another church ended, literally, when it ended, within 24 hours of my board making a unanimous decision to build a music ministry, I got a text from this friend over here. I got a text. If that wasn't a sign that that was the future of my church and what it could be, that was a blessing. And so they brought me a music director. They brought me a mentor. They brought me a friend. They brought us someone who can actually help us transform this church. And so when that was taking place, I realized he can help me be a leader. Why? Because he's got 40 years of church building experience. He's got 40 years of leadership experience in churches. He's led massive choirs in these churches. He's directed churches. He's been the minister of churches when they didn't have ministers. This gentleman has developed volunteer programs and ministries of different kinds within all types of Christian, non-Christian, now metaphysical churches, unity churches, all kinds of churches across the country. He's been around the world. He brought what I was missing. That's exactly what I asked for. And you know what? That action plan, it sounds like it was easy and it just fell in my lap and God bless you and you're so lucky. Let me tell you, it's a lot of work. Not that you're a lot of work. What I'm saying is it was a lot of work. My finding the fact that I had a weakness was a lot of work, because what does that mean? That means I had to make sacrifices. I had to actually sit down with Tim for 2 to 3 hours every week. We do voice lessons, microphone lessons, video lessons. We do breathing lessons. We talk about sermon writing. We talk about principles that we share with you from metaphysical principles. He suggests leadership books that I needed to be reading that I had never heard of these speakers before, videos that I need to be watching, audiobooks that I need to be listening to. And that's exactly what I do every single day, guaranteed. I sacrifice going to the movies, going to the beaches, doing a lot of things, sitting on TV. I don't like reality TV, but I could be watching it. But I wouldn't be building the kingdom for you guys if I wasn't working on me 100% of the time as much as I could. I give myself blessings, and I take some time off. But it is a lot of work. It's time consuming. It's very energy draining, I will say that, to take those steps towards your greatness. But if you're not interested in being great, I guarantee you won't make it through those principles of making the sacrifices in your life. You've got to choose. Are you willing to put forward the excuses in life that these challenges are holding you back? Or is your belief in the principle of God and the spirit world that guides us, and you as an expression of that you are much greater than that fear? Your excuses are fear in your life. Your excuses are false evidence that appears real in your life. You've got to let it go. You got to let it go. Let's talk about something else. Vineyards. Vineyards. Question. Why do vineyards plant a rose bush at the beginning and the end of every row of grapes? Who knows? There's probably a wine connoisseur somewhere in here. You're close. Okay, we'll give you 1 drop of nectar for that. Okay, golden nectar for her, please. What I will say is this. They plant that rose bush at the beginning and end of every row of grapes because it is so highly susceptible to fungus. That's why roses don't grow great here in Florida. All this mold and the fungus that we have, it kills them very quickly. Why is that important? They plant that rose bush because they can immediately, literally drive down these massive vineyards and look at the rose bush and not the grapes. They look at the rose bush for disease and problems. And when they spot the one that's got a problem, they treat it immediately. They begin to treat the body with healing medicine, pesticides and all the other little goodies, neem oil and whatever. Okay? Then, once they've treated it, they've got to actually deal with the rose bush. They've got to deal with the fungus. So they find the damaged parts. The branches and the elements of that rose bush, that sacred rose bush, right? And they got to cut out the damaged parts. They got to cut out the fungus. And don't you dare leave those leaves around that rose bush because it will reinfect the plant. You got to take all of the clippings and what you cut out and get it as far away as possible and burn it preferably. You got to get rid of it. Okay, why is that important for us? Because it has everything to do with us. You see, when we talk about these principles of the fungus and the rose bush and the vineyard is the body of the farmer, the body where all the fruits of the labor are. Okay? And the same goes with us. When our friends try to poison you on your road to greatness, they're acting like that fungus. They're trying to infect your embodiment of greatness. They're threatened by you. They're jealous of you. Your vibration, your spiritual vibration is rising, and theirs is staying low. And they can't take it. They literally can't take it. Their body, it just doesn't feel right to them. That's why when you walk in a room and you walk up to someone and you're like, you didn't even say a word, but I don't like what I'm feeling, because you're not supposed to be really in communication with them. You just need to bless them and keep going. But some people you walk up to and they just say hello, and it's not even what they're wearing. It's not even how they look. It's just something, your spirit is awakened. That is your future. That's a sign that you are exactly where you need to be speaking to the right person, and you need to figure out what does that person have that is blessing you, and how can you be a blessing in that person's life. That's a spiritual lesson waiting to unfold right there. That's your little lotus flower. So let's go back to that rose principle. When your friends are trying to infect the embodiment of your greatness, what do you got to do? You got to wash yourself first, your body, with healing medicine. I am that I am. I am an expression of God. I am in perfect greatness. I am, you could say, the God spark creation, as we always say every Sunday. When you embody that and wash yourself, you have a new power in your spirit. Your spirit is full of healing medicine. And now that fungus of your friendship cannot easily, it maybe can burn the edges of you, but it can't sink deep within the body of who you're trying to be. Okay? You got to take action. You got to cut out, this is going to be hard for you to hear, you got to cut out that branch of friendship out of your life because it's not serving you. Even if they've been your friends your whole life. Okay? I'm not even going to go to family right now. That's a whole nother sermon. We can talk about that another time. But your friends to start with. Cut your friends out. Those friends who are trying to bring you down and poison you and they're not supporting you. Those people are infecting your embodiment of greatness. And that's not right for your path. You know, they don't understand where they need to be, but they shouldn't be trying to infect you with all that negativity. What I want to say is, when you cut those people out of your life, don't let them back into your life until, maybe never, but until you achieve your state of greatness. Then you can reevaluate where they are and where you are, and do they really fit into your garden? Right? Once you cut those friends out, you block, what is it, unfriend them, block them. I don't know what all the, off of Facebook, YouTube, MyTube, unfollow. Yeah, I'm learning all this stuff. It's hard. Well, what are they going to think of me? Who cares what they think of you? I'll say that, and I say that respectfully. Who cares what they think of you? Because they didn't think enough of your greatness, because they certainly weren't celebrating and uplifting you in your attempts to be great. You separate yourself and you distance you. Once you cut them out of your life, you literally distance yourself by unfollowing, blocking. Literally take their number or just put in your phone, don't answer. Don't answer, trouble. Or just say fungus. I don't know. Fungus, don't answer. Oh, it's silly. Where'd that come from, Spirit? But what I'm saying is, don't answer the phone. If they come to your house, don't answer the door. Let them knock all they want. Let them push the doorbell. Because you're inviting trouble in when you allow them to come back into your life. You need to distance yourself, like you take the parts of the rose bush and you get rid of it. You need to push them as far away as you can so that you can be great. Why do you weed a garden? So that the plants that matter, that are going to produce fruits for you in some capacity, so they can thrive and spread out. But those weeds choke your good plants. That's why you weed a garden. Because those weeds steal precious nutrients from what you're trying to bring into expression through your fruits. Right? That's why we weed a garden. So you got to weed those friends out of your life. Weed them out of your life. You got to have an action plan. A great person once said, we fail if we pursue the grand idea of greatness, of a future greatness. We fail if we pursue the grand idea of a future greatness. And Eckhart Tolle said, the foundation of your greatness is actually in honoring the small steps of the now. He's big in the now. I love that. And what he's saying is God in the moment, God in the experience, God in the vision, God in listening to the winds, God in smelling the sea salt in the ocean as it washes over you down at the beach. Things like that. God in that experience. That's being God in the now. So when I realized that I wanted to be a great leader, what did I do? Audiobooks, videos, conferences, traveling to listen to speakers, teach me principles of leadership, meetings, regular meetings with Reverend Tim. All of these principles. And what did I do? I also went into meditation. I found Spirit in myself, and I said, Spirit, what is my next right move? That's being in the moment. What's my next right move? Not, please, Spirit, how can I be great? Please. We don't beg Spirit. We're meant to be, we are God in expression. Don't beg. Begging is not a prayer we do. That's other churches. We claim our divinity because we are God in expression. We tell God, the universe, that matrix, whatever you want to call it, the divine matrix, what we expect of it. And then it begins to deliver. That's the law of attraction, the law of reciprocity. What I give out to the universe comes back to me abundantly. The universe is literally a machine of abundance and prosperity. If it wasn't, we wouldn't exist. Life wouldn't exist because life came from innate matter. We understand in metaphysics that the principle of life itself came as a living spark into a dense cosmic soup, and that life comes through innate matter. But there's always a living principle, even within this, even within rocks and earth and the air. There's a living principle within everything. Interesting. So when I realized I wanted that, that's what I ended up working on. And I heard Spirit say, work on me. Work on you, Kevin. Work on you. Find your teacher. Seize it, just do it. I remember hearing the word, seize it, and I saw the image of Nike, just do it. Cool symbol. And that's how Spirit works with us. They told me what I needed to do. I started demonstrating myself from that point forward as the true leader that I am today. That's what I began to do. I embodied that principle. I took action. I found a need, a weakness, a crack, a hole in my ministry, and I began to fill it. Took a lot of work, but I did it. Yes, I've succeeded. Yes, I failed. I've had some hot mess church services. I'll admit it. We've had some problems where, things didn't work. My speakers didn't show up. I wasn't prepared. You know what? But I didn't let it happen again. I learned from my challenges. I always had a backup plan. Learn from your challenges. What I want to say is, no matter how many times you fail, no matter how many times you succeed, always do the Texas two-step, because what? You take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 2 steps forward, you're still going forward. Right? And when you do that, you move towards your goal, but the principle is this: never give up. You can start those New Year's resolutions, but if you give up, you've given up. You either start over or you don't do it at all. And what does that say for you and your greatness? There's a parable of 2 frogs that I found very appropriate today because it's talking about that principle of never giving up. So we got these 2 frogs, a big frog and a little frog, and they're on this little dairy cattle farm, right? And the farmers are out milking, and these 2 little frogs, they're just jumping around, eating bugs, and they're just like having a good old time, and they jump, and they just jump into a big old bucket of milk. But that bucket is tall, and it's only half full. So immediately they start trying to put their little sticky fingers and whatnots, the suction cups on the wall, but they can't. The milk makes it too slippery. They fall back in the milk. So they're like, we're jumping frogs. We can jump out. They jump and they jump, but that bucket was so tall they couldn't get out. So they're like, okay, we can swim. So they're swimming for hours. They're yelling for help. Help us, help us. No one could hear them. They're stuck in this bucket swimming for hours, exhausted. And the big frog says to the little frog, This is ridiculous. We'll never get out of here. We're going to die. We're going to die. We should just give up. We're just going around in circles. We can't climb up the walls. We can't jump out. The little frog says, no. As long as we're alive, there's hope. You got to keep going. Keep trying. Never give up. And the big frog says, I just can't do it anymore. I'm sorry. And he disappears into the milk. And the little frog says, I just can't give up. I just got to keep trying. And so he just keeps kicking and swimming and keep kicking and swimming. And all of a sudden, after a little while, just as he's about to just lose it and just give up, he realizes, I don't have much left. I don't know if I can do it. And suddenly his little feet rest upon a little pat of butter. And that butter begins to stick with each kick. And it begins to build. And he literally pushes off of the butter and jumps out of that milk pail. He never gave up. He never gave up because he had a vision of greatness and potential for his life. And that's really what it's about. That little frog was determined not to die. In Hinduism, they say, banat banat banjai. Doing, done. In other words, you start your action and you never give up till you're done. Isn't that beautiful? It's so simple. That's what parents say to their kids when they're doing their chores. Banat banat banjai. Doing, done. Hurry. Hurry. Right? What a cute little phrase. It's interesting. Yes, you're going to fail several times. That's okay. Just keep trying. Never give up. We wouldn't have light bulbs today if Thomas Edison hadn't tried 8,999 times. Because on the 9,000th time, he created the perfect light bulb, and now we have light bulbs. When a journalist interviewed him for why he failed so much, he said, I didn't fail. I learned from every experiment. I learned, and those were 8,999 lessons of learning. Those were not failures. Do you see where his mind principle was? Isn't that fascinating? The mountain will rise up against you, friends. I'm going to say that. It will rise up against you. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to take some personal responsibility, as we mentioned earlier. In order to achieve a state of greatness, you've got to make some sacrifice in your life. What do you want? Do you want a state of greatness, a state of God and embodiment? Or do you want to run around wasting your time, not really doing anything, but seeming like you're busy and having an awesome time, just going around, kind of just hanging out? You can hang out some, but work towards a higher principle. That's what I'm always trying to say. Work towards that higher principle, because your faith in your own greatness, that's the key. Do you have faith that, like that little frog, that you're going to keep trying? Your faith has to be greater than the fear. Remember I mentioned that. If you want to live a life that you've never lived before, a life of greatness, you've got to start doing things you've never done. That's interesting. If you want to live a life you've never lived, you've got to start doing the things you've never done. Because currently, whatever you're doing hasn't gotten you to your state of greatness. If you feel you're not great, if your life doesn't seem like it's great. So change what you're doing. Change your direction. As those old Southern Baptist churches would say, repent. It has nothing to do with sin and what you did wrong. It means, and it has nothing to do with taking action. It has everything to do with change your thinking. That's all the word means. Repent, rethink, change the direction of your thinking. Change it 180 degrees from a point of error to a point of divinity, towards what you feel divinity is. And today, like that video said, you are on the verge of the rest of your life. You are on the verge of greatness. Do you want to be great? Do you want to be great? I want this church to be great. I want every single one of you to be great, because you're an expression of my ministry. You're an expression of my embodiment in this community. And that's why I work so hard to support you all in the blessings in your life. Now, are you ready for step 3? Reverend Tim, can I have 30 more minutes? No? Well, President Trump over here says no. So I can't make this church great today, but maybe in 2 weeks, if you come the next 2 weeks, I'll give you 2 more steps, and we can get to a state of greatness. All right? So I want you to repeat after me. It's a new year. It's going to be a new me. Beautiful. Let me hear you if you receive this message into your spirit today. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Oh.